The world didn't ease her into danger. It threw her. And the moment she burst through the archway of the Roman marketplace, she knew, I am not getting out of this alive unless something in me finally wakes up. That was her first thought. Not escape. Not strategy. Just pure, trembling survival instinct. She ran anyway. Her bare feet slapped against the cold stone, slick with the dark, rusty blood left behind from last night's criminal auctions. The stains were still wet enough to shine under the small lamps that lined the Forum streets, still fresh enough to carry the metallic smell of fear. She didn't look back. She refused to. Fear had its own gravity, and she knew if she turned even a fraction of an inch, it would drag her down so hard she'd never rise again. I didn't look back. I couldn't. That's what she told herself as she weaved through the chaos, breath ripping through her like she'd swallowed a blade. But truthfully? She didn't dare look back because she was terrified of what she might see following her. Iron cuffs dug into her wrists, glowing with faint, sinister light, anti-shift sigils carved by priests who believed wolves were nothing more than curses wearing human skin. Sigils meant to bind her. Control her. Break her if necessary. Every jolt of movement made the metal bite deeper, sending sharp shocks of pain crawling up her arms. Each breath she took felt like humiliation. Each heartbeat felt stolen. Each step felt borrowed. Around her, the marketplace was still waking up, cages overturned, amphorae shattered on the ground, broken pottery glinting like teeth. Remnants of the night before sprawled across the stones. Chains half buried in the mud. Ropes cut hastily. Shreds of clothing torn during a struggle. The forgotten belongings of those who had been dragged to the auction block and never came back. People like her. People who never stood a chance. The narrator lets a beat of silence pass. Just long enough to let the listener feel the danger pressing in, before continuing. Underscore 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 underscore. Thunder cracked overhead, a violent, rolling tremor that swallowed the sky. A storm was forming at the edge of the horizon, the kind of storm that seemed almost sentient, angry, unpredictable, punishing. The gods were watching. Waiting. Judging. And the sky mirrored everything she felt simmering inside her. Confusion. Rejection. Terror. And beneath it all, something else. Something molten. Something rising. Rain began to fall in thin, sharp lines, each drop hitting her skin like it had a purpose. It soaked her hair, plastering it against her face, it chilled her bones until she could barely feel her fingers, it made the iron cuffs even heavier than before. But she kept moving. Because stopping meant death. Because stopping meant being dragged back to a life she refused to accept. Because stopping meant surrender. And she was done surrendering. Underneath the fear pulsed something hotter. Heat. Unsteady. Unfamiliar. Unwanted. A flicker of a power she didn't understand. A power she had spent years trying to suppress. A power she feared would consume everything and everyone around her if she even loosened her grip for 1 second. Not here, she thought. Not now. This was the worst possible moment for her wolf to stir, but she could feel it thrashing inside her, pacing and snarling and clawing toward the surface. The sigils on her wrists pulsed in response, tightening painfully as though the metal itself was warning her, "Don't you dare." She ducked behind a marble column, breath coming in sharp, rattling inhales, trying to slow her pulse. Trying to calm the storm inside her before it tore her apart from the inside out. Soldiers swarmed into the marketplace moments later, armor clanging, sandals slapping the stone, torches blazing against the rising storm. The orange glow of firelight flickered across their shields, casting monstrous shapes along the walls. Their faces were hard, determined, already carrying the cruel anticipation of a hunt. One soldier raised his torch higher and shouted, voice thunderous, triumphant. Find the girl with the silver blood. She belongs to the Alpha King. Those words sliced through the air like a blade. The narrator's voice lowers, weighted with emotion. A tremor shot through her. Not from fear, though fear was certainly there, but from a deeper, more visceral reaction. A word she hated. A word that had followed her like a brand. Belongs. No. No, she didn't belong to anyone. Not anymore. Not ever again. Her eyes flickered with silver light she couldn't control, each flash a warning that something inside her was breaking loose despite her efforts to cage it. Her power wasn't sleeping. It wasn't dormant. It was evolving, stretching, waking up in ways she didn't understand. I won't go back, she whispered, voice trembling but resolved. Not again. Her pulse hammered. Her wolf pushed harder. The storm grew thicker, darker, angrier. Everything in her told her she was running toward something far bigger than the soldiers behind her. Toward destiny. Toward danger. Toward revelations she wasn't ready for. But even knowing that didn't stop her. She ran anyway. She ran because she had no other choice. She ran because she'd rather die fighting than be chained again. She ran because there was something inside her that didn't just want freedom. It demanded it. It screamed for it. The storm swallowed the last bit of calm the world had left. Wind tore through the forum, whipping her hair across her face. Flames from the soldiers' torches sputtered violently. The ground felt unstable under her feet, as if the earth itself was reacting to the chaos inside her chest. She darted between broken pillars, cutting down narrow alleys, slipping in puddles that reflected distorted shapes of her own silhouette. Her breathing was ragged, almost painful, but she refused to slow down. Behind her, she could hear the soldiers spreading out, calling orders, kicking over crates, tearing apart stalls. But the worst sound wasn't their footsteps. It was the sound she knew far too well. The metallic pop of a shift collar being unclasped. A growl releasing into the air like a threat. The scrape of claws against stone. They had brought wolves. Not free wolves. Not willing wolves. Bound wolves. Broken wolves. Wolves forced to obey whoever held their chain. Her heart dropped. She couldn't outrun them. Not with her power sealed. Not with the cuffs burning her wrists. Not like this. But she had to try. The narrator's voice softens, letting the emotional truth settle. She wasn't running because she thought she could survive. She was running because she wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Not like this. Not as prey. Not as cargo meant for the Alpha King's throne. She burst into another corridor, this one darker, narrower, lined with the towering shadows of half-collapsed columns. The storm wind whistled through them like ghosts whispering warnings she didn't want to hear. Her chest tightened. Her legs trembled. Her arms ached from the burning cuffs. But she pushed forward. Because she knew something none of those soldiers knew. Something she refused to admit but couldn't deny anymore. The power inside her wasn't asleep. It was waiting. Watching. Learning her fear. Growing stronger with every heartbeat. Please, she begged silently. Not now. Not now. Not now. But the heat crawling under her skin didn't listen. The soldiers' torches moved closer. Shadows lengthened behind her. The growls grew louder. She had seconds. Maybe less. So she did what she'd always done. She ran with everything she had left. And the narrator, drawing the listener into the final line, delivers the hook with a slow, deliberate ache. Everything screamed that she was running straight into destiny. And still, she ran. The flames of torches flickered on wet stone. Thunder cracked overhead like a warning from the gods. Rain washed the blood from the marketplace and replaced it with the promise of something darker. Something waiting for her. And just as her foot splashed into the next puddle, just as her lungs began to burn, just as she felt her wolf claw one last time for release. The narrator leans into the listener with a quiet, intimate invitation. If her story already has your heart racing, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, because this is only the beginning. And what comes next will drag you straight into the fire. I stumbled back until my spine pressed against the cold curve of a stone pillar, the rough surface biting into my skin. My breath shook, sharp and uneven, as I tried to make sense of the reality in front of me. I'd been hunted for days, dragged across courts, thrown into pits, branded, auctioned, chased across half of ancient Rome, and yet nothing felt as dangerous as the man standing a few paces away from me now. His presence thickened the air. It didn't feel like a man had entered the corridor. It felt like a storm had stepped inside a cage with me. My wolf recoiled and reached for him in the same heartbeat, pulling me in 2 different directions until my chest ached. I wrapped my arms around myself, as if that would keep me grounded. It didn't. He watched me the way a predator watches prey that keeps defying the rules of the hunt. Not with impatience, no. Something in his eyes looked like recognition, like he was trying to remember a version of me that I'd forgotten existed. The torch beside him hissed, the flame bending subtly toward his body as though it knew him better than I did. "You shouldn't have run," he said again, softer this time, but no less dangerous. Like a truth spoken too close to a wound. My voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "You would have kept me in chains." He closed the distance between us by a single step, and somehow that small movement felt like he'd pierced straight through my defenses. "I would have kept you alive," he said. Alive. It didn't sound like comfort. It sounded like a sentence. I swallowed hard, my throat dry despite the damp air. "Why me? Why now? You had years when I needed someone, anyone, and you never came." His jaw tensed. A shadow of something painful crossed his face. "I did come." His voice roughened, scraping the air. "You were gone." For a moment I forgot how to breathe. "What are you talking about?" I stepped sideways, needing space, needing clarity, needing anything that wasn't the gravity of his stare. "No one came for me. I was dragged from my packhouse in chains." I screamed until my throat bled. "No one came." He inhaled slowly, like he was taking in something heavier than air. I felt the break in the bond. I followed the burn of it until it nearly tore my heart out. "When I reached your territory, there was nothing left but ash." Heat shivered through my arms. "Ash because of the hunters." He shook his head. "Ash because of you." The corridor tilted. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. "I didn't burn anything." He nodded, eyes dark with memory. "You shifted without control. Your flames caught the trees. The wind carried it. It spread faster than you could breathe." "No," I whispered. But my voice lacked conviction. Because deep inside, beneath the years of fear and running, there existed a memory. Blurred. Fractured. Suffocating. Of waking up alone in a clearing surrounded by charred earth and bodies I never identified. He watched the war on my face and softened, not much, but enough that it felt like his armor cracked. "You were a child," he said. "Too powerful. Too hunted. They meant to destroy you before I could reach you." I looked away. It was easier than facing the truth in his voice. Rain dripped from the cracks above, landing cold on my bare shoulders. The torches dimmed under the damp air, shadows stretching long and sharp. He stepped closer, close enough that heat radiated off his body. It didn't feel like the warmth of a man. It felt like the glow of a forge, too intense, too consuming. "You're still running from the wrong enemy," he said, voice low enough that the stone walls might have leaned in to listen. "You think fate is chasing you. You think I am. But the truth is..." He lifted a hand, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. I hated that I didn't. His fingers brushed the side of my jaw, not a caress, not a claim, but a searching touch, as though confirming I was real. "You've been running from yourself," he finished. A tremor ran through me, sharper than fear, deeper than anger. I slapped his hand away, though the warmth lingered on my skin like a brand. "You don't know me." His lips twitched into something painful, a half-smile with no joy in it. "Lyra, I bled for you in 3 wars and crossed empires to find you. I know your heartbeat better than I know my own." "I'm not yours," I hissed. His eyes glowed brighter, the ember red deepening into something molten. "You were born mine. That's not a choice. It never was." Rage flared inside me, powerful enough that silver sparks flickered across my skin. The anti-shift cuffs pulsed in warning, tightening until I gasped. He noticed immediately. His gaze sharpened. "Who put those on you?" "You don't get to ask me questions," I snapped. But pain lanced through my wrists again, and I flinched. He grimaced like the sight physically hurt him. "They're burning you." "No," I lied, though the metal seared against my bones. "Give me your hands." I said no. "Lyra." His voice lowered, rough and aching. "You're in pain. Let me." "I don't need your help." "Then take your freedom," he shot back. "Break the cuffs yourself." I stared at him, breathing hard, shaking. "You know I can't." "You can," he said. "You always could." My pulse thundered in my ears. "You don't understand what's inside me." "I do." He took another step, now only inches away. "It's the same thing inside me." For the first time since I'd met him, fear and recognition twisted together so tightly I couldn't tell them apart. The bond. The thing I had tried so hard to deny, tightened in my chest like a thread pulled taut. He raised his hands again, slower this time, his palms open, waiting. "Let me take them off, Lyra. Before they take you from me all over again." I stared at the metal glowing silver against my bruised skin. A part of me, the wild, wordless part, begged me to reach out. But the rational part remembered the pits. The chains. The cages. The men who whispered my name like a curse. The Alpha King soldiers searching for me across the forum. This man was the reason they hunted me. He was the danger I'd been running from before I even understood why. So I shook my head. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust myself more. He exhaled slowly, the sound heavy with something like disappointment or resignation. "Then stay behind me," he said. "Now." "What?" "Why?" "Because we're not alone." The corridor suddenly felt colder. Torches flickered violently. Shadows moved. And the scent of metal and danger thickened the air. I opened my mouth to speak, but he grabbed my arm, not harshly, but with urgency, and pulled me behind him just as a spear sliced through the air and hit the wall where I'd been standing. The sound echoed like a crack of thunder. He growled, low and deadly, his entire body shifting into something sharper, something more wolf than man. His shoulders broadened, his stance widened, and the air vibrated with lethal promise. "Stay close to me," he said, voice changing, deeper, darker. "Or you won't survive the next 5 minutes." I swallowed the panic rising in my throat. Because for the first time since I escaped the auction block, I realized something terrifying. Running from him had been a mistake. Running from whatever was coming now might be impossible. The spear was still quivering in the cracked wall when everything inside me began to unravel. His body was tense in front of me, shielding me, but my mind wasn't in the corridor anymore. His words had pulled open doors I'd nailed shut years ago, and the memories poured out like smoke from a burning house. My past rose up, slow and suffocating. Not in flashes. Not in pieces. In full scenes that tasted like ash. The first one was always the same, the night my pack dragged me to the outlaw pits. I was small, shaking, barely old enough to understand what shifting meant, but the elders acted like I was a prophecy that had gone wrong. I could still feel their hands gripping my arms. fingers digging into my skin. Nails scraping. The ground beneath me cold and unforgiving as they forced me forward. I remembered the way the torches flickered when they pulled back my sleeve and exposed the mark on my arm, my birthmark, the one shaped like a crescent twisted into a flame. Some called it a blessing. My pack called it a curse. The elders whispered that my bloodline was wrong. That the moon wasn't supposed to choose someone like me. That I was a danger to the balance, a danger to the laws, a danger to them. I was too young to understand what they feared. Too naive to know fear can rot people from the inside long before fire can. But that night, that was when I learned what terror truly was. They shoved me toward the pit. The scent of rust and damp earth filled my nose. Other wolves watched from the shadows, children like me, thrown in cages for being too weak or too strange or too inconvenient. I wasn't weak. I wasn't strange, not in the way they thought. But I was inconvenient. Because I lived. Because the mark on my arm glowed without moonlight. Because I survived things I wasn't supposed to. And that made me dangerous. The next memory hit harder. The first time I shifted. Not under a full moon like the others. Not under guidance. Not with control. It happened during training, when another pup taunted me, grabbed my wrist, and mocked the flame mark. I snapped, not in anger, but in pain. The world tilted. My bones burned. My vision drowned in white fire. And then everything was flames. The trees ignited like they had been soaked in oil. The grass shriveled beneath my feet. My howl echoed through the valley like a warning the earth itself should have listened to. I didn't mean to burn anything. I didn't even know I could. But when I shifted back, naked, shaking, choking on smoke, the world around me was blackened to charcoal. The elders stared at me like I was a monster. The children cried. My mother, she didn't even look in my direction. I had never felt more alone. And then came the chains. I could feel them now, every cold link, every heavy loop, dragging across my memory as the iron cuffs on my wrists pulsed with the same dull glow. They bound me the day they decided I wasn't safe to keep. Not safe to train. Not safe to breathe the same air. They tied me to a stone pillar while chanting that my wolf was an omen. A warning. A thing that shouldn't exist. I was too young to understand what destiny meant. But I knew what rejection felt like. I knew what exile tasted like. It tasted like blood. Like dirt. Like silence. And now he stood in front of me. The Alpha King. The one man the entire empire feared. The one wolf my pack used to warn us about. The one creature they believed would destroy anyone who crossed him. Yet he was the only one who didn't look at me like a curse. Not even now. Not after everything I'd done. I took a step back, trying to create space between him and the memories tearing me apart from the inside. But the corridor was small. The walls pressed in. His presence filled every inch of the air, every breath, every thought I tried to form. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched me, watched the storm inside me tear through the fragile calm. I dragged my hands through my hair, wincing as the cuffs scraped my skin. You think you know me, I whispered. But you don't. His eyes softened, not with pity, but with something far worse, understanding. I know enough. You know nothing, I shot back, voice cracking at the edges. You didn't see them dragging me into the pits. You didn't hear them say I was cursed. You weren't there when I burned everything I ever loved. He turned his head slightly, like he was listening to every word, every breath. I saw the ashes, he said quietly. And I saw what they did to you long before the flames ever touched the trees. I shook my head. The memories were too loud, too vivid. They said the fire inside me was unnatural. It wasn't unnatural, he murmured. It was destiny. A bitter laugh escaped me, sharp, humorless, painful. Destiny nearly killed an entire forest. You were a child. A child with a power older than any pack elder's fear. Fear. That word felt too small to describe what they felt toward me. They didn't fear me. They wanted me gone. Erased. Forgotten. A story told in whispers about the little girl with silver fire who should have never been born. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold my shaking body together. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Then why do you keep chasing me? Because you're mine. I flinched at the possessiveness in his voice, not because it scared me, but because a part of me buried deep in the rubble of my past responded to it. A part of me that wanted to feel claimed, wanted to feel chosen, wanted to feel like I wasn't a mistake written into the wrong destiny. I hated that part. It made me feel weak. Vulnerable. Exposed. He took a step toward me. I stepped back. Reflex. Instinct. Every inch of space mattered. Every breath mattered. I didn't trust myself near him, not when the bond that tied us pulsed with an ache I didn't understand. You survived what would have killed any other wolf, he said, voice low and steady. Do you know what the elders called that? I swallowed hard. A curse. His eyes darkened. A miracle. The word hit me like a blade sinking straight into the soft part of my chest. A miracle. No one had ever said that to me. Not once. Not even close. Don't, I whispered. Don't say things like that. Why not? Because I've spent my whole life trying to believe I'm not a monster. His expression changed, subtle but unmistakable. Pain. Anger. Not at me, but at everything that had shaped me into someone who believed she deserved chains instead of freedom. Lyra, he said softly, you're not a monster. You weren't there, I whispered, voice trembling. You didn't see them screaming. You didn't see the bodies. You didn't see me lose control. I saw the aftermath. I saw the destruction. And I still crossed empires to find you. His voice was steady, but I heard it, the strain beneath. The desperation. The hope. The ache of someone who had waited too long and lost too much. He took another step, closing the distance between us. The corridor suddenly felt hotter, narrower, filled with something electric that made the cuffs on my wrists start to hum. He lifted his hand but stopped inches from my cheek. I didn't come for the fire, he said. I came for you. I closed my eyes. I couldn't look at him. Not when everything inside me was falling apart. Not when a single touch from him might shatter the walls I'd spent years building around my heart. I don't know who I am anymore, I whispered. Yes, you do. His breath brushed against my lips as he leaned closer. You're the girl who survived. The woman who fought. The wolf who carries a power older than the moon itself. I don't want it, I said. I never wanted any of it. You don't get to choose what you're born with, he murmured. But you get to choose what you do with it. I opened my eyes. His gaze held me in place, anchored me when everything else spun out of control. You think I can control this? I asked. I know you can. And if I can't? Then I'll hold the fire with you. I stared at him, searching for a lie, a crack, a sign that he was just another wolf trying to use me for power. But all I found was certainty. And something softer. Something terrifying. You weren't afraid of what I did, I said quietly. No. You saw the forest. You saw what I saw a wolf who was never taught how to carry the power she was born with. His voice gentled. And I saw a girl who needed someone to stand between her and the world. The walls I built around myself began to splinter. You think that someone is you? I know it is. He reached out again, this time brushing his knuckles against my jaw. My breath caught. The touch wasn't forceful. It wasn't possessive. It was careful. Slow. The way someone handles a relic found buried beneath centuries of ruin, fragile, sacred, dangerous. I won't run from you, he said. Not again. My heartbeat slowed. Deepened. Matched the rhythm of his. That night, he added, voice barely above a whisper, when I reached the clearing, when I realized you were gone. I felt the bond tear. I thought it killed me. My throat tightened. Why didn't you give up? He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching mine. Because fate doesn't make mistakes. And you think I'm fate? I think you're the only reason my heart ever learned how to beat. Something inside me broke. Not painfully. Quietly. Like a seal cracking on a forgotten memory. I stepped back, needing space, air, distance from the truth I wasn't ready to face yet. But the moment I pulled away, his eyes followed me with the weight of centuries behind them. You don't have to decide anything now, he said. Not who you are. Not what you are. Not what you want from me. I breathed out slowly, my palms trembling. Then why are you here? He turned his head toward the shadows at the far end of the corridor, where more footsteps echoed, getting closer. His voice hardened, sharp and deadly again. Because the world is coming for you, he said. And I'm the only one who came to stand between you and the fire. I didn't want to feel the altar responding to me. I didn't want to feel the way the air bent, folding around my body as if greeting something ancient lodged in my bones. But the pulse of it beat through me anyway. Deep, insistent, impossible to silence. It felt like recognition. It felt like being called by a name I had never spoken aloud. My skin prickled as the light twined around my wrists, swirling like smoke, tightening like fingers trying to guide me somewhere I didn't want to go. I stepped back, but the ground thrummed beneath my feet, matching the frantic rhythm in my chest. No, I said again, but the word collapsed before leaving my lips. I couldn't breathe. The air tasted metallic, electric, charged with moonfire. I'm not some chosen thing. I'm not. I didn't want destiny. I wanted freedom. I wanted to disappear into the world and leave every prophecy buried with the wolves who cursed me. He moved closer, slow and unthreatening, but his presence still hit me like a storm I couldn't dodge. His shadow stretched across the altar, merging with mine until I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. You feel it, he murmured. Don't lie to yourself. I did feel it. That was the problem. The energy weaving through me wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was demanding, hungry, like it had been waiting centuries for the moment I touched this ancient stone. I swallowed, throat tight. I never asked for any of this. You didn't have to, he said. The moon chose you the moment your heart began beating. I turned sharply, anger burning through my shock. Don't twist fate into something beautiful. You know what happened to me. You know what they did when that chosen magic first showed itself. His jaw tightened. I know. They chained me like an animal. They branded my wrists. They tried to bury my wolf because they couldn't control it. My voice cracked, rage bleeding into old wounds I had stitched shut with silence. I'm not a prophecy. I'm a warning. He didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on mine, steady, unwavering, filled with something I couldn't stand to see. Not pity. Not fear. Recognition. You think I don't understand what it means to be feared, he said quietly. Do you know what it costs to wear a crown forged from bones of those who tried to kill you? Do you know what it means to wake every day knowing the world calls your power a curse? The rawness in his voice startled me. I'd never heard an alpha sound like that, unarmored, exposed. I know what it is, he said. Because my destiny was carved into me too. The altar flared brighter. The grove pulsed with silver-blue fire that cast his features in an unearthly glow. Shadows slid across his jaw, sharp and unforgiving, but the emotion beneath them. I didn't know how to touch that. What does the prophecy mean? I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. He exhaled, long and slow. It means the moon did not give you a curse. She gave you a key. And the world will try to rip it from your hands the moment they realize what you are. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. What I am. He stepped closer, close enough that heat radiated off him in waves. His eyes burned with a feral intensity that made my pulse jump. You are the return of a bloodline the pack swore to erase, he said. A Luna born from flame. A wolf whose power bends fate itself. My throat went dry. You're saying I'm royal? Not royal. He lifted a hand, hesitated, then let it fall without touching me. Divine. The word hit me like a blow. Divine. Like the ancient wolf goddess I'd seen in the vision. Like the starlit form rising from the flames. Like the whispers in my dreams that never belonged to any voice I recognized. I shook my head. No. No, that isn't real. That's myth. Every myth begins with truth. I could feel the energy gathering again, swirling around my ankles, rising up my legs. The vines on the shrine walls began rustling, shifting, as if guided by a wind I couldn't feel. The moon overhead brightened, haloed in silver light. I don't understand what you want from me, I said. His gaze didn't waver. I want you to stand at my side. My stomach twisted. As what? He stepped closer, eyes burning like two eclipses. As the Luna Queen you were born to be. The words echoed through the grove, vibrating in the air until the altar responded, light flaring upward in a pillar of white fire. For a heartbeat, the world vanished. All I saw was brilliance. All I felt was the silver burn coiling up my spine. I stumbled backward, gasping. Something inside me had cracked open. I could feel power leaking through the fracture, hot and wild, tasting like cold stars and ancient night. He reached out, not touching but ready. Watching. Waiting. Breathe, he murmured. But breathing felt impossible. My pulse thundered. My throat constricted. Images slammed into my mind one after another, too fast to process. A throne of obsidian shaped like a wolf's jaw. A battlefield drenched in moonlight. A pair of glowing eyes, mine, shattering chains with a single breath. A crown of silver fire settling on my head as the world knelt. I clutched at the altar to steady myself. Why are you showing me this? I'm not, he said. The moon is. The visions grew sharper, more intense, until I saw the Alpha King himself, wounded, blood dripping from a cut across his chest. He stood surrounded by enemies, barely standing. And then I saw myself, stepping into the battle, the gross silver fire blazing around my wolf form. The prophecy struck again, echoing in my skull. The one with the mark returns when the Alpha King bleeds. My breath hitched. You're going to die. He shook his head. No. Fate doesn't kill me. She waits for you. That's the same thing, I whispered. No, Lyra. His voice softened. It means I live because of you. Something inside me buckled. Not because of destiny, not because of prophecy, but because of the raw truth in his tone. I had always been something people feared. Avoided. Exiled. But he stood in front of me like my existence was the only thing holding his world together. And I didn't know how to hold that. I stepped back again, unable to stay in the heat of his presence. You don't even know me. I've known you since the night your soul first caught fire. I'm not yours, I said. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Then tell me what you want. What I wanted. I didn't even know what I was anymore. My life had been running, hiding, burying myself. Every pack, every master, every captor had tried to define me. Own me. Fear me. And now this man, this Alpha King, wanted me to stand beside him as something divine. I closed my eyes, but the visions didn't stop. They spun faster, tightening around me like a second skin. The silver wolf. The crown. The fire. Him bleeding. Me rising. A star exploding behind my ribs. I forced my breath to steady. I want the truth. The real truth. All of it. He nodded once. Then listen. The grove changed. The light dimmed. The air chilled. Shadows bled across the moonlit ground as if the night itself leaned in to hear him speak. Thousands of years ago, he said, there was a bloodline born under a moon that burned instead of glowed. Wolves made from flame, not flesh. They were the moon's warriors, her chosen protectors. But they frightened the other packs. Not because of their strength, but because of what they represented. I whispered, change. He met my eyes. Rebirth. Power beyond hierarchy. Wolves who answered only to the moon, not to kings. My chest tightened. So they killed them. They tried, he said darkly. But flame doesn't die. It hides. Your line survived, scattered, hunted, forced into shadows. The packs erased your history to make sure no one ever knew a Luna like you could rise again. A tremor ran down my spine. My parents, were they part of this? He hesitated. And the silence told me everything. I sank down onto a fallen column, my legs no longer able to keep me upright. You knew. I've always known, he said quietly. Anger flared hot and sharp. You knew what I was before I ever understood myself. Yes. You knew the power in my blood. Yes. And you hid it from me. His eyes hardened. Because you weren't ready. I stood again, shaking. You don't get to decide that. No, he said, stepping closer. But the moon did. His words trembled with something I couldn't decipher, rage, devotion, grief, longing all twisted together inside him. You think I wanted to wait, he said. You think I wanted to watch you thrown into chains? Sold at auctions? Dragged through worlds that didn't deserve you? I froze. His voice dropped to a raw whisper. I wanted to come for you the moment I sensed you were alive. But the prophecy said I couldn't. It said you had to awaken on your own. You had to break before you could burn. The pain in his voice clawed at something I didn't want to feel. Every time you suffered, he murmured, my wolf tore itself apart wanting to destroy anyone who touched you. I swallowed hard. Why would you care that much? He stared at me for a long, searing moment. Then he said, because my soul recognized yours the moment you were born. My pulse stopped. He stepped closer. Slow, deliberate, careful not to touch. You are not a prophecy to me. You are not a weapon. You are not a crown. You are the other half of the power that made me king. Something inside me cracked open, a place I didn't even know existed, raw, unshielded, exposed. I don't know how to be what you want, I whispered. He shook his head, expression fierce. I don't want anything from you that you don't give freely. I flinched when the altar began glowing brighter, as if listening. Then why bring me here? I asked. Because, he said softly, the moon wanted you to see the truth before the world tries to ruin it. What truth? That nothing about you is accidental. The grove trembled again, leaves rustling without wind, vines curling toward the altar. The stone cracked open further, revealing a silver flame hovering at its core. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. My heartbeat. I stepped toward it without meaning to, drawn like metal to magnet. What is that? I whispered. The first fire, he said. The spark your bloodline was born from. The flame flickered, sensing me. Wanting me. I felt something ancient move beneath my skin, like a sleeping creature stretching, waking, recognizing the flame as kin. Fear shot cold through my stomach. What happens if I touch it? He didn't answer immediately. But his silence told me enough. I won't survive it, I whispered. You will, he said. That's what makes you the one. The flame flared, reacting to my fear, or to my denial. My wolf stirred, pacing beneath my skin, restless, hungry, aching for something I couldn't name. I backed away. No. I can't. I won't. You were born for this. I was born to be hunted. I was born to be hated. I was born. No, he growled, voice suddenly sharp. You were born to end the cycle that broke you. His eyes burned brighter, wolf bleeding through. You were born to change everything. I felt the world tilt again. Violently this time, as the flames surged upward, wrapping around my wrists. My mark ignited, glowing silver white beneath my skin. Pain seared through my arm, scorching up to my shoulder. I gasped, dropping to my knees. He moved instantly, but didn't touch me. Just hovered near, torn between protecting me and respecting the force unfolding around me. Breathe, he said again. Let it in. The flame crawled higher, burning through every wall I'd ever built. I screamed. Raw, ragged, the sound tearing through the grove. But the pain shifted, becoming something else. Something fiercer. Something alive. The flame didn't hurt, it revealed. Memories that weren't memories flooded me. Running through forests that no longer existed. Watching the sky split open with silver light. Howling beside wolves made of stars. A voice whispered through the fire. Luna of flame. Rise. And then everything went white. The grove vanished. The altar vanished. Even the Alpha King's presence dissolved into the brightness. I was weightless, floating inside pure lunar fire. And somewhere deep, deeper than thought, deeper than breath. My wolf opened its eyes. Silver. Vast. Eternal. A voice, my voice, spoke through the fire. I remember. The flame surged, wrapping around me completely. Then. Silence. When the light finally faded, I collapsed forward onto the cold stone of the altar, trembling violently. My chest heaved. My skin buzzed as if charged with lightning. He caught me before I hit the ground. I didn't even realize I'd fallen into him until his arms wrapped around me, strong, steady, pulling me against the heat of his body. I felt his breath against my ear. I've got you. My voice was barely a rasp. What happened? He pressed his forehead to mine, an intimate, grounding gesture that sent warmth spreading through my ribs. You awakened, he whispered. I shivered. Not from the cold. From the truth settling inside me. The prophecy wasn't a story. The visions weren't fantasies. The flame wasn't metaphor. I was the Luna born from the first fire. And the world was about to realize it. He cupped my jaw gently, forcing my gaze to meet his. Lyra, your destiny has already begun. His eyes glowed with a truth I could no longer run from. The moon has chosen her queen. And as the grove hummed with ancient power, as the first fire settled beneath my skin like a second heartbeat, I realized something far more terrifying than prophecy. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. The vow formed in my chest before I could stop it, sharp, hot, electric. It coiled through my ribs like a blade forged in the same fire that woke inside me. The soldiers didn't know what they were provoking. The possessed wolves didn't know whose flames they were rushing toward. Even the Alpha King, for all his power and certainty, didn't truly understand what would happen if I unleashed the thing sleeping in my blood. But the cuffs still burned, suppressing me. Holding me down. Trying to smother the fire that no longer felt like a curse. I stared at the soldiers as they rushed into the grove, armor clattering, swords raised, shields glinting with symbols meant to subdue supernatural threats. Their formations were tight, practiced, perfected through brutality and centuries of conquest. These weren't the disorganized slavers from the pits. They were Rome's elite. Soldiers trained to kill anything that defied empire. Their leader stepped forward, face hidden behind a bronze wolf-shaped helmet. Yield yourself, witch. The word which cut deeper than any weapon. It echoed the same hatred I'd heard since childhood. The same disgust. The same warning whispered around fires when they thought I slept. Monster. Omen. Curse. I didn't move. Couldn't. Not until the Alpha King growled, low, dangerous, vibrating through my spine like thunder crawling toward the earth. His arm swept in front of me again, blocking the soldiers. Touch her, he warned, and watch your empire burn. The soldiers didn't even flinch. She carries the fire of the old blood. She is forbidden by every pact your crown ever swore. Step aside. He didn't step aside. Instead, something in him shifted, subtle, but unmistakable. His posture changed. His breath deepened. His wolf pressed against his skin until his eyes glowed with lunar fire. I do not answer to Rome, he said. The soldiers raised their shields. And I do not let my mate fall. My lungs stopped. Mate. The word hit harder than any spear. Harder than destiny. Harder than prophecy. It was a bond wolves didn't claim lightly. Not even alphas. Especially not alphas who ruled empires of their own. But I didn't have time to unravel it. Because the soldiers lunged. Everything exploded at once. Metal slamming into stone, swords clashing, wolves snarling in agony as they tried to resist the commands forced into their bones. The grove lit up with chaotic movement and burning fury. The Alpha King surged forward, shifting partially, his ribcage expanding, claws ripping through armor, teeth slicing into shields. He took down 3 soldiers with one brutal strike, then pivoted to shield me from a barrage of spears. But even he couldn't stop all of them. One spear grazed his shoulder. Another tore into his side. Blood spilled, dark, warm, shining under the moonlight. My breath locked. The prophecy's words slammed into me. The one with the mark returns when the Alpha King bleeds. He was bleeding. Because of me. Because of the prophecy waking too soon. Because of the soldiers who wanted me dead. Because of the world that believed my bloodline should stay buried forever. The Alpha King stumbled, forcing himself upright again, chest heaving. Lyra, run. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Not when I saw the possessed wolves dragged forward by chains, forced to fight their own kind. Their eyes glowed, empty, hollow, filled with a command that stole their free will and replaced it with cruelty. Familiar cruelty. I'd seen those eyes before. In my pack. In the elders who bound me. In the guards who threw me into the pits. That same vacant obedience. That same stolen choice. A soldier pointed at me. Kill the cursed one. The wolves lunged. My heart shattered as they launched toward me, wolves who might have been protectors, mothers, sons, warriors, wolves who should have chosen their own path but were being weaponized against me. My cuffs tightened, burning deep into my bones, suppressing my wolf until my vision blurred. Fury rose, hot and wild, but trapped, desperate, suffocating inside chains designed to break me. I staggered back. Not in fear. In rage. A raw, vicious rage that scraped the inside of my ribs until I thought I would scream. The Alpha King tried to reach me, cutting through soldiers, claws ripping, teeth slashing, every movement fueled by instinctive protectiveness. But he was outnumbered. Even his power couldn't hold them back forever. I turned toward him. He looked at me like he knew the truth before I realized it myself. We couldn't win like this. Not with the cuffs on me. Not with my wolf trapped. Not with the soldiers using the bound wolves as shields. Not with destiny waiting for me to stand up and stop running. My pulse hammered. My lungs burned. A soldier rushed me. Before he reached me, I moved. Not with control. Not with grace. Pure instinct. I ducked under his blade, grabbed the spear shaft, and drove my knee into his armor. The impact rattled his chest plate and sent him sprawling back into the grove's edge. 3 more soldiers followed, but something inside me snapped. My wolf wasn't asleep. She was screaming. The cuffs glowed red hot, fighting to restrain me while my wolf slammed against them with every ounce of strength she had. I felt something tear inside my wrist, skin breaking, burning, sizzling where the sigils carved themselves deeper. The pain was blinding. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. The world had been trying to suppress me since the day I was born. Now they wanted to destroy me because of power they forced me to fear, power they swore I couldn't control. Let them fear. Let them realize too late that they pushed me too far. I seized the arm of another soldier, twisting until bone cracked. One of the bound wolves leapt, but instead of attacking me, it landed between us, snarling, fighting the chains embedded in its flesh. It didn't want to attack me. It was being forced. I saw it clearly now. Suffering, desperation, resistance buried beneath compulsion. Stop. I shouted, voice raw. I'm not your enemy. But the soldiers yanked the chains hard, forcing the wolf forward with a pained howl. My vision blurred. Not with fear. With fury. The Alpha King roared behind me, tearing through soldiers as fast as he could. But blood dripped steadily from his wounds, staining the ancient stones. His breathing was ragged. His movements slowing. He couldn't hold them back. I had to. I backed into the altar, chest heaving. The flame inside it pulsed again, sensing the chaos. Sensing the blood. Sensing me. Its light flickered bright, silver, white, blinding. The soldiers froze when the flame reacted. They recognized it. Feared it. A murmur ran through their ranks. She's awakening. Stop her. Kill her before the flame takes form. The Alpha King roared, pushing forward with renewed strength, but he staggered again, blood pouring from the gash across his ribs. My heart lurched. He was falling. Because of me. Because he chose to stand in front of the world's hatred and call me Luna. And that was the moment something inside me, something ancient, something fierce, something lunar, rose. My wolf slammed against the cuffs with a force that made my whole body jerk. Pain surged up my arms, burning, ripping through muscle and bone. I bit back a scream as the metal glowed brighter, hotter, cracking along one edge. But the flame at the altar responded. It reached toward me. Not physically, but through memory. Through blood. Through connection older than anything Rome ever built. I felt the fire inside the altar thrum in the same rhythm as my pulse. It recognized me. It called to me. And my wolf. My wolf answered. A shockwave ripped from my chest. Soldiers stumbled back. The chained wolves howled. The ground cracked beneath my feet. The Alpha King looked up at me. And something like awe flickered across his face, mixing with horror, devotion, desperation. Lyra. Before he could finish, the cuff snapped. Pain exploded through my arms, searing, violent, but freeing. The sigils shattered and burned away into ash. My wolf surged forward, bursting through the crack in the dam they'd held me behind for years. Not a full shift. Not yet. But enough that my bones vibrated, my breath came out in a growl, and my eyes burned with silver fire. The soldiers stumbled backward in terror. There, one shouted. The curse is taking her, kill her now. The bound wolves lunged again, this time screaming, resisting, fighting the commands forcing them forward. And the altar flame rose behind me, swirling like a storm of silver fire. I stepped into it. It didn't burn me. It became me. Power poured into my veins, cold and hot at the same time, like ice dipped in lightning. My senses sharpened. My heartbeat deepened. The world slowed around me as if time bowed in submission. The first wolf reached me. I touched its face. An energy rushed through me, silver fire pouring from my palm into its body. The possession shattered. The compulsion broke. The wolf's eyes cleared, turning from hollow gold to warm brown. It fell to its knees, chest heaving with freedom, chains sizzling until they dropped away. The soldiers watched, paralyzed, horrified. She freed it. She broke the spell. She's the Luna reborn. No. This cannot be. Fall back. Another wolf lunged, this one desperate, fearful, forced by chains to kill. I reached out again, fire flowing from my hand in a soft, controlled wave. The chains melted off its body. The compulsion shattered. The wolf gasped, collapsing in relief. The Alpha King stared like he was watching a prophecy unfold line by line before his eyes. But the soldiers didn't retreat. They roared, rushing me with renewed desperation, blades raised high. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I lifted my hand, and the silver fire flared outward in a sweeping arc, gentle enough not to kill, powerful enough to break every chain in the grove. The possessed wolves collapsed, freed. The soldiers froze, stunned. And the ground beneath me stopped trembling. For a breath. For a heartbeat. For the span of a moment where everything felt suspended, weightless. Then, chaos shattered that stillness. A horn sounded in the distance. More soldiers. More wolves. More enemies. The world wasn't done trying to kill me. The first wave had been a warning. Now they were coming in full force. The Alpha King staggered toward me, bleeding heavily. I caught him just as his knees buckled. His fingers dug into my arm, desperate, trembling. Lyra, your power. I'm still learning, I breathed. You don't have time to learn. He looked toward the trees, where shadows moved, dozens, maybe hundreds of soldiers closing in. This is only the beginning, he said. And as the grove pulsed with remaining fire, as blood dripped from his wounds, as the world closed in around us with hatred sharpened into weapons, I felt something fierce settle inside me. Not fear. Not prophecy. Resolve. My existence was a threat. Good. Let them come. Let them try to extinguish the fire the moon placed in me. Let them learn what happens when the world attacks something it should have bowed to. I lifted the Alpha King's face toward mine. Our enemies don't know what they just woke up, I whispered. And as the soldiers stormed the grove, I welcomed the war. The moment he pulled back, the cave felt colder than the storm outside. The fire between us crackled like it had heard something it shouldn't. My skin still tingled from where he touched me, light as a breath, heavy as a vow. I hated how easily he could undo me without even laying claim. I hated even more that part of me wanted him to. Rain hammered the stone overhead, leaking through cracks and thin streams. The scent of wet earth and pine filled the air. His shadow loomed across the cave wall, broad, restless, pacing. My pulse tracked every step he took, every drag of his breath. Even his restraint had weight. I didn't pull away because I don't want you, he said finally, voice rough, like gravel sliding over ancient wounds. I pulled away because you've spent your entire life being claimed. I refuse to become another chain on your wrists. My throat tightened. You're assuming I'm afraid of you. You are, he said. But not for the reasons you think. A spark of anger flared through my chest. You don't get to decide what I feel. He stopped pacing. The firelight cut across his jaw, catching on the scar that ran from his ear to his throat. A reminder of someone who once tried to silence him. His eyes, storm-dark, silver-flecked, held mine without blinking. Then say it, he murmured. Tell me you're not afraid of wanting me. Heat shot through my stomach so fast I almost curled around it. I swallowed hard. My voice barely formed. I didn't say that. I expected him to smirk, to weaponize the weakness he found, but he only sighed, shoulders sinking with tens of years he'd never spoken about. Sit closer to the fire, he said. You're freezing. I'm fine. Your lips are blue. It's just the storm. It's the trauma you refuse to release. The words hit too precisely. I looked away. You don't know anything about my trauma. I was raised in a palace that smelled of blood and fear, he said. Don't assume I don't recognize it. He stepped away from the shadows and sat across from me again, closer this time. Not close enough to touch, but enough that I felt the heat rolling off him in thick waves. My breath steadied in spite of myself. He reached toward the cuffs around my wrists. May I? I hesitated, but extended my hands. His fingers brushed the burned metal, and something sharp fluttered down my spine. Not pain. Something that felt like recognition. These sigils weren't meant for restraint, he murmured. They were meant for silence. Someone didn't want your wolf to speak. My wolf is dangerous. Only to those who hurt you. His certainty should have soothed me, but it made something else surface, fear of what I could become if I believed him. Fear of how deeply his conviction pressed against the places I'd kept locked. He traced the glowing lines on the cuff. The more you fight your power, the more it hurts. You don't understand, I whispered. My fire burns uncontrollably. It killed. He lifted his gaze. Who? My lungs constricted. The memory clawed up, raw and unforgiving. I forced the words out like they were shards. My Pax Omega. She tried to protect me when I shifted too young. I didn't mean to burn her. I didn't even know the flames were mine until she was already screaming. His expression didn't shift into horror or revulsion. Instead, grief flickered through his eyes, grief not for the Omega, but for me. You were a child, he said quietly. A child punished for being powerful. They feared me. They envied you. A bitter laugh scraped out. You weren't there. No, he admitted. But I've seen what happens when someone is born with power others cannot bear. Rome kills what it cannot command. Pax exile what it cannot understand. His fingers brushed my wrist again, gentler this time. You deserved protection, not punishment. Silence wrapped around us, dense, weighted, almost tender. Rain thundered harder against the stone. The fire spit and hissed. The storm pressed close like it was listening. I drew a shaky breath. Why did you save me back there? Really? You think there's only one reason? He asked. There usually is. He looked at the flames. Because I made a vow. Long before I met you. What vow? That when I found the one the prophecy spoke of, I wouldn't let her bleed alone. My chest tightened. You think I'm her? I know you are. I shook my head. The prophecy said the Alpha King bleeds when the Luna returns. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, he cut in. Because my blood was spilled the moment I saw those cuffs on your wrists. My breath caught. He wasn't talking about war. He wasn't talking about destiny. He meant me. He meant us. Heat flashed through my body, fierce and terrifying. I don't want to be your prophecy, I whispered. I don't want you to be, he said. I want you to be mine. The words slammed into me harder than any soldier's blade. My pulse stumbled. My wolf snarled inside, desperate to rise, to answer him, but the cuffs glowed hotter, suppressing her like a hand around her throat. He noticed my flinch and leaned closer. Your wolf is suffocating. I know. Let me help her. You can't. He reached out and cupped my jaw, thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. I can do many things you think are impossible. His touch was warm, grounding, almost unbearably gentle. It made every wall I had tremble. You're not wearing your crown, I whispered. No. You look less like a king without it. And more like what? He asked. Like someone who's trying. His breath hitched. I am. My chest tightened. Why? His hand slid down my jaw to my neck, stopping just above my racing heartbeat. Because you look at me like I'm worth being forgiven. The confession stole the air from my lungs. He closed the distance between us until his forehead touched mine. Heat gathered low in my stomach, pooling, pulsing. I want to kiss you, he said in a rough whisper. But if I do it now, it won't be soft. My breath shattered. Then don't be soft. He groaned under his breath and pulled back just enough to stay sane. Not until you trust where you stand. I'm here, aren't I? You're here because you're hunted, he said. Not because you choose me. What if I do choose you? His eyes darkened, something feral awakening. Then say it. My throat went dry. Emotional nakedness was worse than physical. But I forced the words out, quiet but true. I'm choosing to stay. His jaw flexed. Then trust me enough to let me in. Lightning split the sky outside, illuminating the cave in a harsh white flash. Thunder rolled through the mountains like the gods were shifting in their sleep. He let go of my neck and moved behind me. My heart pounded in warning and anticipation as he unfastened the metal clasp of his cloak and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric was heavy, warm, soaked in the scent of pine, smoke, and something darker, something undeniably him. I swallowed. You're treating me like I'm fragile. You're treating yourself like you're dangerous, he countered. I'm trying to show you both can be true. Heat crawled up my throat. What does that even mean? That you don't have to be one thing, he murmured. You don't have to choose between the girl who survived and the wolf who was born to lead. I don't feel like a leader. You feel like fire. His voice slid down my spine like a hand. And fire, he said, does not bow. My breath caught. He reached for my wrists again, thumb brushing the glowing sigils. These marks weren't meant for you. They were meant for something ancient. Something your pack feared waking. What? The firewolf, he whispered. A Luna born from flame, capable of burning through bonds and bloodlines. A chill rippled through me. That sounds like a myth. Prophecies are myths until the moment they awaken. I shook my head. If that were true, I wouldn't be shaking like some scared. His hand closed around mine, firm but not forceful. You're shaking because you've been alone too long. My eyes burned. Shame crawled up my throat. I don't want to need you. You don't need me, he said. But you're allowed to. The words cracked something open so violently I nearly gasped. I pulled away, not because I wanted to, but because the vulnerability was too raw. He didn't chase me. He didn't demand. He simply spoke, voice low. You can leave whenever you choose, he said. I won't stop you. That's not fair. I'm not trying to be fair, he murmured. I'm trying to give you what no one ever has. And what's that? Choice. The cave went silent. The rain slowed, turning into a steady whisper. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. His scent wrapped around me like a question I wasn't ready to answer. I don't know how to trust you, I admitted. You don't have to trust me, he said. Trust your wolf. She's trapped. She's waiting. For what? For you to stop fearing your own fire. My breath hitched. What if I burn everything down? Then I'll stand in the flames with you. Something inside me broke, quietly, painfully, beautifully. I didn't move toward him. I didn't reach for him. I simply closed my eyes and let myself breathe in the truth of his presence. Warm. Steady. Unyielding. Not as a king. Not as a prophecy. Not as a captor. But as someone who refused to run from me. When I opened my eyes again, he was watching me with an intensity that stripped me bare. What now? I whispered. Now, he said, you decide. Decide what? Whether you'll keep running from your past. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, a force I couldn't look away from. Or run toward your future with me. The cave fell silent again. My pulse thundered. My wolf clawed weakly against the cuffs, desperate to rise, not in fear, but in recognition. He held out his hand. Not commanding. Not demanding. Offering. My throat tightened. And if I take it? Then everything that hunts you, he said softly, will have to go through me first. The storm outside roared like it knew what decision hung in the air. My fingers trembled. But I lifted my hand and placed it in his. His exhale broke on contact, like he'd been holding it for years. Heat surged through the cuffs, but this time it didn't burn. It thrummed, pulsed, awakened. Light flickered along the sigils, then dimmed, as if acknowledging the choice I made. His fingers tightened around mine, steady and sure. "No more running," he murmured. "No more hiding," I said. His voice dropped to a whisper that sank straight into my bones. "Then trust me." "I do," I breathed. "For now." "For now is enough," he said, and I finally believed him. The fire blazed higher, brighter. And the world, for the first time in years, felt like it wasn't closing in, but opening. Preparing. Awakening. Because I did trust him. And that trust was the first spark of the destiny neither of us could outrun. The corridors of the fortress twisted like a labyrinth, shadows pooling in the corners where torches flickered and hissed. My lungs burned with every breath, ragged and shallow, yet my wolf inside me raged louder than the fire in my veins. Silver light flickered along my wrists, unbidden, unpredictable, violent. Every step I took left scorched stone behind, marking my passage with the warning I had no choice but to be. The Alpha King's absence behind me was a hollow weight in my chest. I had expected him to charge into the council, to strike down those who dared question my existence. I had expected loyalty. I had expected him to be my shield. Instead, I had faced the truth of their manipulation alone. The betrayal stung more than claws, more than flame. I pressed myself against the wall, panting, ears straining for the echoes of pursuit. My mind was a whirl of anger, confusion, and fear. Every step I took was haunted by the vision of his still, quiet face as the council condemned me. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. And in that hesitation, he had betrayed me. Not fully, not yet, but enough to shatter the fragile trust I'd placed in him. The hall stretched endlessly, arches dripping with the cold dawn mist. Moonlight glinted off silver inlays carved into the stone, a reminder of the packs who had come before, of the empires that rose and fell on betrayal and fire. I had lived in exile, had been hunted, had been chained, and I had survived. But the betrayal that cut deepest was the one that came from the heart I had tentatively trusted. I ran faster, heart hammering, wolf clawing against the cuffs that still clung to my wrists. The sigils flared, agonizing and bright, illuminating the hall in streaks of light. My vision blurred with tears and fury. My hand shook as I touched the walls, leaving trails of silver, proof of the power I had been taught to fear. Every instinct screamed that I should control it, tame it, but taming meant submission. Submission meant them winning. Submission meant becoming what they said I was, a threat, a monster, a weapon to be cast aside. A voice called from behind me, sharp, cold, commanding. "Lyra." It wasn't the council. It was him. The Alpha King. My blood ran ice-cold and molten simultaneously. Relief and anger tangled in my gut, twisting into nausea. I wanted him to catch me, to sweep me up and take me away from this suffocating betrayal. I wanted him to be everything I had dared to hope. But the hesitation in his voice, always that hesitation, stripped any warmth from the plea. "I won't let them," he started. "Don't." I spat, spinning to face him, silver flames dancing across my wrists like angry serpents. "Don't speak. You already betrayed me." His eyes, dark as a storm and flecked with moonlight, softened, but not enough to soothe the ache in my chest. He raised his hands in surrender, unarmed, vulnerable, but the vulnerability was meaningless now. Words meant nothing in the wake of betrayal. Actions had weight, and his had been absent when it mattered most. "You think I betrayed you?" He said quietly, almost afraid. I don't know what to think." I shouted, voice echoing through the hollow corridors. "I don't know if you're my protector or if you're just waiting for the council to tell you how to feel about me. I trusted you. He flinched, like the weight of my words was a physical blow. I saw the flash of pain cross his features, regret, fear, love, anger, all colliding in silent war. And for a heartbeat, I allowed myself to see him not as a king, not as an alpha, but as the man who had dared to look at me, who had spoken my name and made me feel seen. But that glimpse was shattered the moment the council's shouts rose again, demanding my sacrifice. The wolf inside me roared, claws scraping against iron cuffs that burned my wrists. Heat flared from the silver markings, snaking up my arms and across my shoulders. I could feel the fire of my ancestors pulsing through me, wild and unrestrained. My eyes glowed bright, silver and white, casting shadows on the walls like living spirits. The council recoiled. The guards hesitated. The Alpha King's gaze burned into me, torn between command and helplessness. "I am not your sacrifice," I screamed, the words tearing through my throat with the force of a cannon. My voice carried through the halls, raw and unbroken, shaking the stones and rattling the rafters. Flames erupted along my arms, weaving patterns of silver across my skin, beautiful and terrifying. The very air vibrated with the power I had spent years fearing. I turned and ran again, faster this time, leaving scorched marks and sparks in my wake. My wolf surged within me, claws unsheathed, senses sharpened, instincts raw. I didn't stop to think. I didn't stop to breathe. I ran because if I paused for even a moment, the council would descend, the Alpha King would hesitate again, and I would be reduced to ashes before my fire could even speak. The corridors narrowed. Stone walls pressed close. Shadows swirled like smoke. Every corner I passed was a reminder that I was hunted, that betrayal could take the form of love as easily as it could take the form of law. My pulse rattled in my ears, the sound of it almost louder than the storm outside, almost louder than my wolf's cries for release. A door loomed ahead, iron-bound, massive, ancient. I slammed against it, pressing my full weight against the wood. Silver flames snaked along the edges, burning away rust and weakening locks. The Alpha King's voice cut through the chaos behind me, soft, commanding, impossible to ignore. "Lyra. Stop." I didn't. I couldn't. The door gave, swinging inward with a crash that echoed like thunder. I stumbled into a courtyard, open to the morning sky. Rain still fell, light now, pattering against the black stone and the silver streaks of my unleashed power. I turned, eyes scanning for pursuit, and saw the Alpha King at the threshold of the hall, hands empty, chest heaving, the storm of his presence barely contained. He didn't run toward me. He didn't step to shield me. He simply watched. Pain flickered across his features like lightning, and I understood then that his hesitation wasn't cowardice. It was a war inside him, a battle between duty, prophecy, and desire. And I had been caught in the middle. "Why didn't you stop them?" I yelled, voice breaking. "Why didn't you protect me?" His voice faltered, then hardened. I tried. I tried to bend their will, to stand between you and their fear. But their chains aren't only on you. They're on me too. I laughed bitterly, tears blurring silver fire in my vision. Chains? Always chains. You talk about loyalty and protection, but you hesitate the moment it matters. I can't, I won't, wait for someone who might fail me again. The wind whipped across the courtyard, carrying the scent of wet stone, smoke, and iron. Silver sparks from my wrists lifted into the air, swirling like fireflies untamed. My wolf stretched and snarled inside me, testing the bounds of the cuffs, roaring against the world that sought to contain me. I will not be caged. I screamed, voice raw and echoing. Not by them. Not by you. Not ever again. The Alpha King stepped forward, the ground trembling beneath him with the weight of his presence, every muscle coiled like a predator, every instinct honed. "Lyra," his voice was a growl now, deep, heavy with restrained fury. "Do not let your fear consume you." "I am not afraid," I shouted, fire and fury intertwining. "I am alive." A sudden gust tore across the courtyard. Rain lashed down, mingling with the silver flames along my arms. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his face in stark, brutal clarity. His eyes, storm-dark, impossible, locked onto mine. The space between us felt electric, charged with energy that neither of us had yet learned to wield. And in that instant, I realized the truth. Betrayal wasn't only the council, wasn't only the guards, wasn't only the hesitation. Betrayal was expectation, was trust, was the belief that anyone could truly protect me when the fire in me refused to be tamed. I had run from packs, from priests, from empires. I had fought against the chains of fate and bloodlines. But this betrayal, this fracture in the bond one had just begun to form, cut deeper than any whip, any blade, any silver cuff. My wolf surged, claws scraping against the stone, silver fire blasting outward in arcs that lit the morning sky. I could feel the full measure of my power, untamed, untethered, alive in ways I had feared. The council and guards were scrambling, scattering like leaves before a storm. And the Alpha King, my mate, my anchor, my torment, stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching, torn between stepping in and letting me rise on my own. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The fire in my veins wasn't just power. It was my truth. My rage. My survival. My freedom. And in the heart of the fortress, under the pale light of a reluctant sun, I swore that the world would remember my name, not as a girl who ran, not as a Luna who was feared, but as a force that would burn through lies, betrayal, and empire alike. The Alpha King's voice came again, low and steady, carrying over the crackle of silver fire. Lyra. I didn't answer. I had no words left for him, no mercy, no hesitation, no fear. I was fire incarnate. I was the wolf unbound. I was the Luna the prophecy had whispered about in shadows and fear. And the fortress trembled beneath me. The ritual grounds were alive in a way I'd never known. Broken columns hummed with the echoes of ancient rites, vines twisting like serpents, wet with dew and moonlight. Each stone beneath my feet pulsed with energy, thrumming in time with my heartbeat. The storm overhead had passed, leaving the world bathed in a cold, silver glow, but the air was electric, so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin, as if the very night were holding its breath. I glanced around. The enemy wasn't human, wasn't even entirely corporeal. Shadows gathered into a shape taller than any wolf I'd ever seen, moving with intent, with hunger, with the kind of power that had once been chained beneath Rome. Its teeth glinted like shards of obsidian, claws scraping stone with a sound that resonated in my chest. And at its center, the innocents, wolves from the packs that had been chained, offered as sacrifices, trembling with fear I knew too well. My cuffs snapped. The sigils cracked and flared against my wrists as if my defiance burned them away. Silver flames coursed up my arms, igniting my hair with a halo of light. My wolf inside me stretched, claws digging into my bones, fangs bared, body trembling with the hunger to strike. And then it happened, I shifted fully, every cell, every strand of muscle, every fiber of me ignited with the power I had feared all my life. I rose, taller, fiercer, the Luna I had been denied for centuries, my voice echoing with the whispers of ancestors, with the fury of generations. Wings of flame burst from my back, molten silver eyes slicing through darkness, tail lashing with kinetic energy, and my voice tore through the night. I am not your omen. I am not your curse. I am not your sacrifice. The ground quaked beneath me, cracks racing through stone and soil alike. The shadow beast roared, a sound like the ripping of reality, and recoiled. Its form wavered against the intensity of my power. I didn't hesitate. My fire leapt outward in arcs, rivers of molten silver surging toward it, biting, burning, reshaping the space around me. Each step I took left glowing footprints on the stones, ancestral symbols I had never known I could summon. The wolves, terrified yet mesmerized, began to stir, their chains rattling, eyes reflecting the inferno I commanded. Behind me, I felt him, the Alpha King. His presence dropped to a knee, not in submission, not in fear, but in awe. The storm of power surrounding me illuminated his features, jaw clenched, dark eyes wide, and for the first time I saw raw, unfiltered admiration mixed with something deeper. Something that belonged only to me. The shadow beast lunged again, faster this time, teeth snapping toward the innocents. I roared, and my voice carried more than sound, it carried authority, history, and wrath. Silver flames arced from my hands, forming a barrier, then a spear, then a torrent that collided with the creature. Smoke hissed, shadows writhed, and the beast staggered, unsteady, unprepared for the fury of a Luna fully claimed by her power. Every strike I made was deliberate, controlled by instinct but guided by something older than myself. I could feel my ancestors flowing through my veins, whispering strategies, amplifying my senses. The Alpha King shifted partially, leaping beside me, claws glinting in silver moonlight, but this time he followed my lead. This time I was the commander, the storm, the reckoning. The shadow beast struck at me again, a blur of teeth and smoke, and I met it head-on. My claws, silver-hot, tore through its chest, but its essence resisted, warping around my touch. I screamed, a sound that merged human, wolf, and Luna, the past, present, and future all colliding in one explosive cry. Flames roared from my body, consuming the space around it, bending light, twisting shadow, making the very air vibrate. And then I heard it, its voice, ancient, dripping with malice. You dare rise, child of silver fire? I do more than dare, I spat, voice steady now, cold and unyielding. I claim. I conquer. I am here. I am Luna. And you will bow or be destroyed. The beast surged, but so did I. My wings of flame stretched wider, curling around me, a protective inferno. Silver energy erupted from my tail, wrapping the shadow beast, pinning it as much as my rage pinned it. I could hear the Alpha King breathing beside me, feel his strength sinking with mine. I didn't need him to fight. I needed him to stand with me. He did. We moved as one. My fire, his claws, our instincts intertwined. Every strike was poetry, every movement a promise. And as the beast faltered, I realized something crucial. I wasn't just fighting for my life. I wasn't just fighting for freedom. I was fighting for every wolf chained, every Luna exiled, every fragment of myself that had been denied existence. The beast collapsed finally, a shuddering heap of smoke and whispers, fading into nothingness under the relentless brilliance of my power. The innocent wolves, still trembling, looked up at me with wide eyes. For a moment, they saw not a monster, not an omen, not a weapon, but a protector. A Luna reborn. I fell to my knees, exhausted, silver flames dimming to a gentle glow along my skin. Every muscle screamed in protest, but my wolf within purred, satisfied, finally at peace. I looked over my shoulder. The Alpha King stood, chest heaving, eyes wet, dark and fierce, burning with something unspoken but understood. You, he breathed, voice husky. You did it. You are. I didn't wait for him to finish. I rose fully, trembling, still ignited by silver fire, and met his gaze. I am not your sacrifice, I said softly, deadly, and undeniably. I am mine. He nodded, a slow, deliberate motion, respect and awe etched in every line of his face. He stepped closer, hand extended, eyes saying everything words couldn't reach. I took it. Not because I needed him. Not because I was weak. Because for the first time I understood the bond we shared was not about control, dominance, or prophecy. It was about choice. I had chosen him. And he had chosen me. The ruins trembled beneath our feet. The wind howled, carrying the scent of silver fire and rain-soaked earth. Moonlight danced across my wings of flame, illuminating the Alpha King beside me, our shadows entwined, no longer predator and prey, no longer master and exile. I was fire, and he was the storm. And together, we were unstoppable. The night whispered around us, not with fear, but with reverence. I had claimed my power. I had claimed my destiny. And the world would never forget the day a Luna rose from chains and became more than anyone, even the Alpha King, could have imagined. The battlefield fell silent, but my chest still pounded like war drums. Silver fire flickered faintly along my skin, echoing the storm that had raged inside me. The shadow beast had retreated, wounded but not destroyed, leaving ruins that smoldered in the moonlight. The air tasted of ash and rain, and every heartbeat reminded me that this victory was only temporary. He approached me slowly, the Alpha King, moving like a man stepping toward the sun, unsure if it would warm him or scorch him alive. Every inch he closed, I felt the pull, the magnetic weight of the bond neither of us could deny. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the hesitation, the awe, the silent acknowledgement of the fire I wielded, the storm I had become. "Lyra," he whispered, voice low, intense, a tremor of vulnerability hidden beneath centuries of strength. "Tell me you're still mine." I looked at him. The man who had hesitated when I needed him most. The Alpha who had stared at me like he already knew what I was, yet feared what I might become. My silver fire still glimmered faintly along my arms, wings of flame folded behind me, faint but alive, just like my wolf coiled beneath my skin. And I asked the question that would define us. Would you have chosen me, or feared me too? The wind carried my words across the ruins, over broken columns and scorched earth, reaching every shadow, every stone. Am I your Luna, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? He hesitated, a long moment where everything balanced on a knife's edge. Then his hand brushed mine, not claiming, not demanding, but offering. I felt every unspoken promise, every hesitation, every ember of loyalty wrapped in that single touch. My pulse collided with his, silver fire flickering to life again, brighter, surer. I spoke to the silence, to the audience drawn into the story, to those who had raced with me through every step of fear and fury. If this tale lit something burning inside you, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Here, we tell stories that scar, that heal, and that ignite the soul. As I stepped away from the battlefield, the ruins fell into an uneasy calm. The air shimmered faintly with silver embers, traces of power lingering where my fire had surged. But the tremor underfoot warned me that the night was not done speaking, that the world had more to throw at me, more to awaken. A shadow moved along the edge of the ruins. A voice, colder than the moonlight, rose from the darkness. She is not the only one. Silver eyes pierced the black, burning with a history older than my own. The Alpha King's hand tightened on mine instinctively, claws scraping the broken marble beneath our feet, ready to defend, but this was no ordinary threat. It was a rival, a force ancient and deliberate, echoing the prophecy, mirroring my own power, yet filled with intent darker than any I had faced. The true Alpha hasn't risen, yet, the voice continued, slow, deliberate, echoing against the crumbling columns. I felt my wolf stir violently beneath my skin, tail lashing, claws unsheathed, teeth bared. Silver flames ran along my veins. My chest burned with fire, my pulse racing with adrenaline. This wasn't just survival. This wasn't just power. This was destiny challenging me, daring me to rise higher. I looked to the Alpha King. He had shifted partially, eyes blazing, muscles coiled, ready to strike. His presence was steadying, grounding, a counterbalance to the storm that had been unleashed inside me. "Do not underestimate her," he said, voice tight but confident. "She is stronger than you know. She will not bow. She will not break." The figure in the shadows tilted its head, gliding closer, movements like liquid darkness. Every step seemed to pull the air with it, bending the night around its form. "We shall see," it said. I raised my head, letting silver fire flare along my skin, wings lifting faintly behind me. "I have already claimed my power," I said, voice steady, cold, and unyielding. "I am Luna. I am fire. I am silver. And I will rise, whether you believe it or not." The shadow studied me, circling slowly, eyes piercing, measuring. Its laugh was sharp, metallic, echoing through the ruins. "Perhaps, you are the one the prophecies spoke of. Perhaps, you are more than the Empire ever feared. But if you are to rise, you must endure what comes next. And I will be the test you cannot escape." I felt the Alpha King's hand tighten over mine. "Whatever comes, we face it together," he said. "Yes," I whispered. "Together." The wind howled, carrying the scent of rain, silver fire, and destiny through the columns. Every shadow, every flicker of light, reminded me, my journey, my battles, my power were only beginning. The moon bled red over the ruins, and I knew that far from the city, far from Rome's reach, other forces had awakened. Ancient wolves, rival alphas, forgotten gods. The night whispered of them all, and the air thrummed with anticipation. I inhaled, letting the cold night fill my lungs. Fire still ran through my veins, my wolf coiled and ready, senses sharpened beyond what any human or wolf could imagine. The ruins were silent, but alive with the energy of history, destiny, and the battles yet to come. A distant tremor shook the earth. Not the ground. Something beneath it, older, hungrier, a presence that had waited for centuries. My pulse quickened. My wolf bristled. My fire flared. I glanced at the Alpha King, gripping his hand. "Whatever it is, we face it," I said. "Yes," he whispered, voice fierce, unwavering. "Together." Above us, the wind tore through broken columns, carrying whispers through the ruins, challenges, prophecies, battles yet to unfold. Every sound, every flicker of shadow reminded me that the story was far from over. I was not a pawn. I was not a sacrifice. I was the storm, and the storm had only just begun. The night stretched before us, dark, dangerous, infinite. And I, Lyra, Luna of silver fire, would meet every threat, every prophecy, every shadow that dared rise. And I would rise stronger, fiercer, unyielding. Because this story, my story, was only beginning.